Let's go! Portfolio review time! And great start. There's no screen. Love it. Oh, there we go. It's fixed. How's everyone doing? Hi, Kirav. Good evening. Hi, Sudan. My second favorite. How is everyone doing today? Mishla, Chila, EJ, how are we all doing? Happy to have you all here. Hope you're all doing lovely. Let's make sure that this all works too before we properly dive into it. Nice. Yeah, there were a lot of not last minute, but like a lot of people that were really interested in getting a portfolio review. Let me so start this thing as that was live on stream. Whoops. Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate. Because we do have a meeting as well going at the same time. So that's what you heard. I just popped in and then Will just talking in the background. But it's all good. I just wanted to get that event kicked off as well in our community chat. Hi, Nikori. How are you doing? Hi, William. How is everyone doing? It's been pretty hot over here, huh? I mean, the temperature's going down now, but it's been freaking toasty over the last week or two. So not really enjoying that all too much, but we've got some cooling over here. I think honestly, like our dog Nacho is honestly suffering more from it than we are. But yeah. All right. So, I was saying we have like a whole bunch of people. We have a whole bunch of people that have signed up today. So we're not, unfortunately, not going to go through all of them. I'm gonna see how far we're gonna get, and yeah, we'll see. I think, how many did we pick? So I think we're gonna go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then maybe some other people as well, but I'm not sure. So how many people are there on the backlog then? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4. We'll see. We'll see where we get. 16 degrees Celsius in Romania. That sounds awesome. That sounds like a nice temperature for me. Literally melting. Sunny Spain being warm. Yeah, but I mean, come on, you should be a little bit more used to it, you know, living in Spain. I don't know, I live in Berlin, like in freaking Germany. I wasn't expecting it to be that hot over here. William is melting in Costa Rica. Well, I hope you all have a way of staying fresh and cool. Drake is saying that it's 95 degrees Fahrenheit in Florida, I'm assuming. I have no conception of what that means in degrees. So, sounds hot? Question mark. It's always so weird when you have to do the conversion because I have no idea. 34 degrees. Thank you, second favorite. Yeah, that is toasty. Best of luck to you, Drake. All right. Anyway, the more we... Well, I kind of made the stupid mistake of also making like a hot coffee as well. So, I don't know what I'm doing with my life, but... Cheers. I'll make sure to have some heavy renders in order to get closer to the 30 degrees. Oh my god. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Like, I got a pretty beefy PC, good cooling, right? But when you're literally sitting right next to it and you don't really have good airflow in your apartment, like, it's getting toasty in here. Especially when you're playing some games or you're doing some, I don't know, let's say you have Unreal Engine open with a heavy scene and then you're doing stuff in Blender, but also want to do stuff in Substance Designer. You know, like just have like all those open casually at the same time. Yes. The good side to that is, the good side, if we swap it around, we have to never put our heating on in the winter. Yeah, so that's the benefit of it, I guess. Like, we don't use our heating at all in the winter because, yeah, just having the PCs on is nice enough for our apartment. Anyway, enough talk about all this hot weather. I don't want to get even hotter by just thinking about it. Let's talk about some portfolios instead, shall we? So today we're going to start out with Emmanuel Jacob. I think, honestly, sorry, Emmanuel, I think we missed out. I think a couple of months ago, I think I skipped your portfolio review. That wasn't intentional. Sorry about that. Because I was going through the previous live streams and I couldn't find you in there. So sorry about that. If that ever happens to you at all, if you shared your portfolio in the past in the community channel and I've missed it, just send me a message. Please do so. Tolo, hey, I'm new here. How do I get in for a review? That's a good question right before we get started. So these are all people from our community, from the Beyond Extent community, and people that have access to that community, they get to be the first ones on the portfolio reviews. There is a way where you can sign up as well, but to be honest, like the portfolio reviews have been quite full in recent months, so I don't know if we'll get to you. Let me send you the link regardless, right? Because I do want to give you the option. But it depends. Let's say if we don't have enough people from the community, then I'll pick some people from outside as well. But the community definitely has front row seats. Hi, Antonio. Thank you so much for the question, Tolo, as well. Anyway, Emmanuel, let's have a look. So I'm gonna pick out my post-its with my written format. So we're gonna start out with the overall impressions of this thing, of like your portfolio, not this thing. So we're gonna just take it in. I like the banner. Banner's looking nice. It's nice and clean, you know? What I also do like are these logos. Like they're like unique in terms of like the thumbnails that they come with, right? So I kind of like that. The only thing that I don't really like is that they're so big, but we're going to dive into that in a little bit. But I think the overall impression is really good. I like the portfolio that you've laid out, right? There's like a mix of an environment and then also like a high quality prop in there as well. So showing that you're comfortable with doing a highly detailed prop, but then also like a bigger environment too. So that is great to see. And I'm assuming that these other projects, they're like either school projects or projects that you've done for like a professional job or something like that. So yeah, it's nice. There's not much on here, right? But I'll say that is not necessarily an issue either. Like the amount, like it's quality over quantity, right? Always. So having this condensed portfolio is actually not a bad thing. Then the first thing that I always wanted to point out is how your work kind of stacks up to what you call yourself as well. Like to me, it's very important that you see yourself in line with the work that you put out, right? But in this case, like it's spot on, right? Like we have environment prop artist, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. So straightforward, great job, Emmanuel. It seems like you've got your niche and you're going for it, which is really good. Next up, let's have a look at the the thumbnails first, right? I think, like I was saying before, the thumbnails do look good, right? I think this one is definitely the best one. Maybe what I would do for this one, because I know what the environment looks like, right? What you could do is use a close-up instead. Right? Maybe like a highly detailed section of your environment. Maybe like one of those book stands or like artifact stands, right? To really have like an interesting like close-up shot. And then as soon as you click on it, like it opens up the whole environment for you. I know that I say this like a lot of times, but I think that's like a very interesting way of showing off your work and like having the transition from something like, oh, this is a cool, unique prop, and then you open it up and the prop is actually just a part of the bigger environment, which could be really nice. But overall, like I like that it's vibrant, you know? It's vibrant, it's bright, it's capturing the attention, especially if you were to put this in like a collage with like homepage thumbnails. I think that could be like a very interesting one that people will gravitate towards. So yeah, great job. Then on these two, I would probably say try to show off more of the work itself, unless this is your way how you're gonna present future portfolio pieces that are professional work in like a very consistent manner. Right? That's also your choice. And I think if you're doing that, that could actually be like an interesting choice if you wanted to do that. But then maybe make it clear from the thumbnail that this is for like a studio or something. Right? So you would have like the studio logo here. Maybe. Because then that would make it would be kind of an interesting presentation of having like the game and then buy the studio, and then you can click on it and it reveals like all the work you've done on it. I think that's actually like a really interesting approach and a unique approach as well to what I've seen before. So yeah, I'm kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, right? To make it small. I think there is something here where you could really make it yours by having the game logo in the center and then having like the studio logo on the side or something like that. So yeah. Especially the thing here is, and you're doing it with these two, right? So I'm assuming that this was going to be like a thing that you were going to do consistently in the future. I think if you're doing it that way, then that's where it's going to look really nice if you have like a full row of like professional projects that you worked on, right? With like the same sort of approach. Could look really nice, honestly. Because you're actually doing a pretty good job of condensing like the work that you've done into like a visual format. That way. Because to a certain degree, right? It depends on the game that you work on. But like some games are more difficult to show off in like a visually interesting way where they don't disrupt the flow of your portfolio. So if you're dealing with games that are not that interesting visually, right? And I'm not saying that this is the case here, but just as a case example, like you have to find like interesting ways to still put it in your portfolio without it disrupting the whole thing. So I think this could be like a good approach. Hi Puns, I'm doing good, thank you. How are you doing? Welcome back. So, and then the last thumbnail, I think maybe zooming in on this a bit more. I think the thing that's kind of hard here is the black on black. Right? Like you have very dark metal and then you put it on like a very dark background where if you if you reverse the background, then it would show off like way nicer. Or you go for something like really artistically, you pick like a pastel color or like a bright color or something unique, right? Something that just moves away from this black on black aesthetic that you have going on now, especially with this thumbnail, right? And then also with this thumbnail, I would not include your name here. Maybe even not include the logo. I gotta be careful that I'm not writing over the chat. Right, so like no logo and then no description. I think just keep it clean and keep it to the work for this one is gonna be more effective. Because also like no one for you to be able to read this, right? Like your name and your email, like you would need to like open the page in a new tab and then zoom in on it. And I can guarantee you no one's gonna do that. Because also this link is just sending you back to the page where you got it from anyway, right? So I see why you're doing this, because you wanna have like a link back to your portfolio, but I think it could be more effective if you do it on the big pictures rather than on the thumbnail itself. Cool. So that's it on the thumbnail side. I think I like the way that you're presenting your work in general, right? Like there's just a small couple of tweaks that we talked about. But yeah, very, very interesting way of also putting a barrier between your personal work and your professional work as well. Yeah. Yeah, interesting. So let's then have a look at some of these individual projects, right? I'm going to start from the back, actually. Right, so we're kind of getting the same feeling. Like the black on black is not really, it doesn't really make it stand out. Obviously in the close-up images, like we're getting more of like the highlights, so it's a little bit easier to distinguish it from the background. But there's still like a lot of spaces where it becomes really hard to distinguish, like where the asset ends and like where the background begins. And that's very confusing for us to look at, right? So yeah, trying to clear that up a little bit is definitely going to make a lot of difference. But the approach here, like the actual look of it actually looks really good. I think for the next one, there's a couple of things, if I would point them out, is probably add a bit more geometry to it, right? You kept it. I'll say that. I'll appreciate it for trying to be game ready, because this is what an actual game ready prop would look like. However, if you're then comparing it to like all the other people, like really pushing out like geometric detail on their assets, it's not gonna look as good comparing to them, right? So you're kind of stuck in this mode of like, I'll have to do it the same as they do, because their stuff looks better because of it, right? But that's just a small little tangent. The wireframe. Looking nice. It's looking clean, right? You can definitely... Yeah, okay, yeah. Quick and easy tip, right? Like this is just a small deviation. Like use edit edge on these. Edge. On these edges that you're adding back into it, right? Because I can see that you added these two edges because you were lacking geometry, but then they kind of break up the flow of the whole thing, and it kind of feels like unnatural. The same is happening here, right? Where you have like these two edges, and then these two are like straight. So yeah, tying that up and making it nicely and consistently flowing with like an edit edge tool where it will basically like conform the edge that you select to the other edges surrounding it. It's definitely going to be really helpful for something like this. Small details, but like this is the stuff that can easily be fixed, right? And it's going to take you like maybe a minute. I mean, the majority of that is going to be installing the add-on. Yeah, it's worth paying attention to though. Okay. I think for the last, because the stuff that I like here, Emmanuel, is that you're showing off game art, right? And you're trying to show off like all the maps that you use and like all the textures and all that stuff, which is awesome. Keep doing that. I think you have to find a different way of presenting your work where you'll this is difficult, right? You have to basically put yourself in the shoes of someone who has never seen your work before and then try to understand it through their eyes. Because if I were to look at this now, I'm like, cool, okay, these are the texture maps, but are they, is this like a weird aspect ratio, or are we doing like a breakdown of 4 textures? I think it's better to clear up that misunderstanding, because I know what you're doing here, right? This is a full texture map and you just split it off so that you can show the individual textures that you've used, right? But I think to make it clearer, do it in relevance to the actual asset, where you have something like a landscape presentation. You say, this is your prop. And then here you have your texture breakdown, right? So, I don't know. So, base color, roughness, normal. Then what else did you use? Metallic? Yeah, right. And then people can see immediately like, oh, these texture maps are used on this asset, and can directly see the influence. You could also do maybe like a GIF scrolling through it with the actual object changing as well based on the map. So you could have it scroll through number 1, 2, 3, and 4, with the prop also like cycling between number 1 and 4, right? So that you have the full material. You start out with that, and then you cycle through base color, and then you see the prop in base color, and then you see roughness, and then you see the prop in roughness, and then do that for all the textures, and then it's really easy to see the comparison between the two, right? And you can see how you approached let's say certain roughness areas on certain areas of your prop, where if you do it in this way, it becomes really difficult for me to tell where what thing is, right? I can do like estimations, right? Or like I can guesstimate where something is going to be, but it's very tricky to tell. So trying to be as clear in the visual language that you're trying to set up for your display of your game art should be taken into account as much as possible. Right, so I would say for this one, gotta look at the time as well. So for this one, for the future, it would be more geometry, right? Number 2 is fix minor topology. Number 3 would be presentation of the individual texture maps, right? And then number 4 was black on black, right? It's just a presentation by itself. Right, so that would be like the recap here. What I would also say as like a bonus, you would probably want to render them out on landscape regardless of the prop itself, because what that is also doing is right now you can look at my screen, right? But like I want to see the prop in its full glory, but I can't because the square aspect ratio of it is kind of pushing it like below my screen. So meaning that if I want to see like the whole thing, I'm kind of like, oh, okay, kind of here, but not here, right? It doesn't fit on my screen. If you were to do that on like a landscape aspect ratio, then that's going to solve that. And you don't have to fill up the frame, right? Just leave the ends like blank. Nothing really needs to be there. The focus should be on the center of the frame anyway. Cool. But yeah. Overall, I gotta say, like, the textures look really nice, you know? Textures look really nice. So yeah, great job, Emmanuel. Then we're gonna look over some of these ones. These are for, yeah, for Spilt Milk Studios. So like a little game. Little diorama looks nice. I like that. You know, like a little diorama goes a long way, especially when you have the assets already, right? Like for this is a cool way of showing off the stuff they've already made for this game. This is great, Emmanuel. Something stuck in my... Is it cool? Even did some VFX? It's awesome. This is also nice, right? Like, I didn't look at the description for the other one, but this description is so nice and clean. You know, I mean, it's kind of cut off, right, from the chat, but it's basically saying worked as a junior 3D artist for Spilt Milk Studios, and then you just straight in go into like, hey, I was involved in this stuff. You know, these were my responsibilities. Done. And then you just let the work speak for itself. I think this is awesome. Put a marmoset here as well. Sorry for the late reply, Puns. That's okay. Adexu, love that idea of presenting your texture maps. Going to have to use that in future pieces. Yeah. Yeah, I think to elaborate a bit on more like the generic feel of how I think you should approach your portfolio in general, right? Is to minimize the amount of time it takes to see all the stuff that you want to show off, right? And the more you split it up, like the more it becomes fractured and the more time it takes to put, like, especially in that case that we were looking at, like put the texture maps to the actual asset. Whereas if you have it right there, right next to each other, like it becomes like instantly recognizable, right? And it also clears up the two images that you have to have into one, right? It just condenses the whole post again, which is awesome as well. These are looking nice though. These are looking nice. You gotta... Yeah, it's an interesting style. I'm not gonna say too much about it, right? Because I know that in studios you normally don't have a drastic effect on like the art style. Yeah, these look nice. So I like the wand and like the magic gem on top of it. That's cool. Yeah, but this presentation is clean. Like it. We're gonna have a look at cell swords. Pipeline from whiteboxing, asset creation, VFX shaders, set dressing, and terrain work. Nice. So really being hands-on with like a ton of stuff. This is good. That's awesome to see. Yeah, if you can find more interesting opportunities to showcase this a little bit better, right? Like I think your actual previous work was a good showcase of this, where you made like a little scene or like a little diorama with the stuff that you've made, right? Like a little showcase scene. You can probably approach that the same way, especially for these assets, if you still have the access to the files, which I don't know if you do. But that would have been nice for the next time, right? Just making like a little diorama. Pretty cool. Yeah, it's cool though. Very cool. And the last thing, your latest piece over here. Do what? Okay. What's the difference in these two? See ya! So good, yeah. So wait, what is... This is kind of like a hovering shot, right? Oh, and this is more of a static shot, I guess. Okay, so this is an interesting thing, right? Because I think we're running into like a case where you didn't know what to pick, so you just had it both. And I think that's, in a lot of cases, the wrong approach, where you should just pick one. I would say, I mean, if you look at it very objectively, right, the difference between the two of them is very small as well. So keep that in mind. I think if you wanted to maybe do something like having a shot like this, where it like slowly like zooms in, so that there's like a little bit of movement, but very subtle, could be like a good approach. Because I think that the movement that you've done here, I don't know. Like, I like it up until this point, I think, but then it goes back, and I'm like, I think it would have been nice if it was just continuing, right? Yeah, anyway, so I would definitely condense these two down. Right, so picking one video. Picking the one video. Because again, like, I'm trying to reduce the amount of stuff that's on this post, right? And just make it the most impactful that it can be. Slight thing here is aspect ratio consistency. If all your shots are landscape, right, then I feel that a shot like this should be landscape as well. Just because it's kind of jarring to look at like different widths and sizes of images all the time. So trying to keep that consistency as close as possible would be good. Got some shader graphs. Yeah, man, this is a difficult one, right? Because I'm having a conversation with a lot of people about shader graphs specifically. I don't think they show a lot of value, but there's also people out there on the opposite end of the spectrum that love to see shader graphs and how they've built up. So I think we're just going to leave it at that, right? Because you would agree, like, I agree with the whole sentiment, right? Because you do the same thing with your assets and your textures, right? Like, you try to show as much as you can to reveal as much of the process to the people that are looking at your portfolio, right? So that's what you're doing here with shaders as well. So I think let's keep it on. Then you have the whip image. Yeah, okay. So there's like a final thing that I want to say about the order of this, right? Where it might be like a small nitpick, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think the way that you could potentially do it is to do final first, right? Like you're doing here. Then the video. Ideally, what you want to do is do the video first if you have access to letting it autoplay on ArtStation, right? So if that is an option, if you can get I think the file size down enough, or something like that to have it autoplay, that's more effective. And then I would switch them around, because then people open your page, they see a video, like they look through the video, and then they see like your final shot, right? So that could be like the opposite way around then. And then what else do we have down here? Those are the videos. We have like the lighting setup, which, yeah, I guess what I would do instead is have detail shots first. So like detail shots first, and then we dive into the breakdown of everything, right? So that's where you show the lighting that you have. What else is here on the post? So you have like lighting, you got these detail shots, you got the shaders as well. Oh, you know what? No, not the lighting first. In your case, actually, that process GIF first, because that always looks really good. GIF first, then number 5 is lighting, and then the shaders. Right, and what I'm trying to do here, let me actually put it on something that's probably like a bit more legible. So in this overview, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to estimate the importance or the relevancy to the people that are going to watch it, right? So you want to have the most impressive stuff first, right? Where you show off the video or the final screenshot where they can take in like the full environment. And then you have like some detail shots in there to highlight some additional shots that you've set up. And that's usually where like a lot of people are gonna be like, cool, this is awesome. Great environment, I'm just gonna move on. But from that point, it kind of switches to like your breakdown, right? And that stuff is more relevant to recruiters or people that are looking to look at your work and like replicate it, of course. But yeah, you always kind of have to look at it that way, where you don't want to have people scroll through the whole thing to get to the good stuff. You want to kind of show that first and then do a breakdown afterwards. And I think you did a good job. I think you did a really good job. I just like, what is it, like switch some stuff around, right? So at this point, you start to break down. And I think then you start again with the most impressive thing, right? The GIF that you have of your process, and then lighting and the shaders. So yeah, I think that's how I would break it down overall in terms of presentation for this one. And then the 2 minor points is like picking the one video and keeping the aspect ratio consistency, right? But those are like 2 minor points, but could still be useful to implement. Cool. And I think that's about it. I don't know if there is anything like in the blog. No blog posts. The about page is very clean, right? So yeah, thank you so much for sharing this, Emmanuel. Let's do a little recap, right? So I think the most pressing stuff is, I would say some of the tweaks that you can do, right? Especially to this one is the presentation itself. Honestly, on this one, I think this one is actually really good. I think the way that you show it off, the stuff that you have in there, like it's nice and clean. I like that. Same for this one, actually. It's just like the minor stuff that I brought up, right? But I actually like the way that you've already laid things out. And also the environment itself looks really good as well, right? So props on that. I'll give you one last tip. If you wanna increase the chances of people clicking on it, like saturate or boost this thumbnail just a little bit, so that it becomes like a little bit more eye-popping, right? Just a little bit. so that it stands out from the rest. Do a little bit of photoshopping on your thumbnail to make it stand out. But yeah, honestly, like it's a great looking portfolio, right? The stuff that's there is really nice to look at. So great job. And I like what you're doing with the presentation of some of your thumbnails as well. So if you can keep that consistency going forward, that would be really interesting to see. Yeah, awesome job, Emmanuel. And thank you so much for sharing your portfolio as well. Appreciate it. And then we're going to go straight into the next one. It is Greg. Greg Laux? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, so apologize. Hi, my presentation is awful and everything is in all different sizes. I'm sorry in advance. I have 4 months before I graduate. Oh, yeah, that's no worries. EJ! Thanks, Tim. No worries. Happy to help. Low? Sarah? Low? Huh? Oh! You were saying about the surname. I wasn't catching on. Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool, Greg. Let's have a look at it. Funky profile pic. Yeah! Nice, happy profile pic. I like it. So, again, overall impressions, right? Nice, happy profile pic. Love to see it. And then, like, a nice banner as well. Like, an interesting looking banner. It's a nice choice because we have, like, the symmetry going as well, right? So I think it's a good banner choice. And let's have a look at the actual work. Yeah, cool. Very interesting. I think, like you said, I feel like there's like a lot that you can do with the presentation, right? Of making it like way more interesting. In my opinion, some of the more boring stuff that you can do, and this is what I try to avoid now, is just having like straight on cameras onto your subject. That usually kills like any sort of perception of depth or like interesting framing like immediately. And it makes, in my opinion, it makes things look really boring. So these, like, I mean, you got a great example here, right? Like this is slightly off center because you have to, because the chair in front of it is in the way, but it kind of already adds like an interest, right? Because the camera is slightly off kilter and we're looking at it sideways. It's already looking more interesting than some of the stuff that is just looking at the thing head on. Photo like this is kind of getting somewhere here, but it's still just like straight on, you know? So I think that's the first thing to look at, is to re-explore your work and to see if you can find some more interesting angles to especially use as a thumbnail as well. Okay. We kind of went over the thumbnails like really quick, right? I'm gonna dive into this and see if I can find some opportunities for thumbnails depending on the work itself. So I would say let's start with this one. This one is actually quite interesting. I'm quite curious with this one. I mean, wait, so that's a Blender blockout. Huh? Why is that not the thumbnail? I made it in Blender first and then brought it over to Unreal Engine. Okay, interesting. Yeah. So you did some testing first and then you brought it into Unreal. Okay. Man, this is an interesting one because this is very confusing. Right? Like, I know that you're doing all the right things here, right? Like you're saying that this is the Blender blockout, and you then ported it over to Unreal. Oh wait, it goes on. Oh, sorry. Oh, I didn't scroll all the way down. Sorry for that. What is that? Oh, it's just YouTube. Never mind. Okay. You see what I'm doing here? Like, this is the same thing you can expect from, like, people that are looking at your portfolio, but, like, way quicker than I did it. It's like, okay, cool. Nothing is changing. Cool, I'm gonna skip through the whole thing. Oh, it's the same thing, right? I know that I'm being very blunt, but I'm trying to say it as it's probably gonna be, right? I think what you could do here actually is have like a little fly through, or maybe do like different camera shots, right? Where you take like a couple of seconds from the entrance, a couple of seconds from like the first section of the hallway, and then like a third section where you look into, or like you're in the corridor or something like that, right? So that we get to see like the different variations of the, or like different sides of the environment, right? Yeah, I think so. I think the main thing here, I think the main thing that I'm getting is I'm confused, right? So I'm seeing like a lot of different things, and you're writing these little messages down here, but it's still very confusing to me as to what I am looking at and where it all happened, right? Because it almost feels like you made the complete environment in Blender, and then we're like, oh shit, I'm doing game art, so I need to switch it to Unreal. What you could actually do in that case, I'm trying to think, right? Like, you kind of wanna emphasize, the different stages a little bit better, right? So let's say I'm gonna make some. So this is page number 1, right? So that's page number 1. This is gonna be walk out. You're gonna have that on the image where you put it to the side or something like that, right? And then you can have those two shots like next to each other. And then you go into no, actually, let me change that up a little bit. Because it kind of goes in line with what I was saying before, right? With Emmanuel's work as well. Where you kind of want to start out strong with the final image first, right? So you get the final image, bam, people know what it is, people have the complete context of like the whole scene, and then maybe the second thing can be like the video fly through, right? Right, cool. So that's 2. And then since we have like most of the stuff out of the way now we can actually get into like the breakdown of it, right? So number 3 is probably going to be an overview of the whole process. Maybe you have some other shots and you can kind of turn it into like a GIF instead. Like a process GIF, right? Because then people can see like, oh, like block out in Blender, it's coming together, and then at a certain point, like you switch to Unreal, which is fine, right? But you just add that switch in there as well, and then people can see it from like start to finish. And that's gonna give like a very good impression, I think. And then number 4 is where you can show off like the additional things that you want to show off, right? Like trim sheet testing, for example. Right, because that's what we're seeing here. And also think about like how to visually make a connection between the two, right? So it would be kind of awesome to have this on a landscape shot. So let's say all this stuff is going to be cut out, right? Just for the sake of this presentation. And then you're going to have your trim sheet up here, and people can instantly correlate this trim sheet and the way that it's built up to how you're using it in your environment as well, which is great, right? So yeah, trying to, as much as you can, reinforce that in a visual manner rather than having to type it underneath as like a little caption, because I can guarantee you no one's ever going to read those captions, right? So yeah, trying to make it like visually clear when you're presenting something. And then, yeah, that's going to create like the connection between the trim sheet testing and the actual assets that are made with that trim sheet. It's going to look very interesting. Just get rid of some of this stuff. Right, so then you have the trim sheet testing over there. Okay, so yeah, you're showing off the different maps as well, right? What you can do then is break down the trim sheets. So trim breakdown, it's going to be number 5. And we'll see. Yeah, and same for all of this, right? What is that? This is cool. This is a cool shot, man. Like I feel like you can add some of these shots. Yeah. Squeeze them in here. Okay, so that either you have the video first or you have the image first. That's up to you. But I think some of these additional shots look really cool. It's just no one's ever gonna get them because you buried them down into like the lowest the lowest levels of hell. Right? Like and also what I'm trying to do as I'm doing this, like I'm trying to condense the whole format down into like something that is a little bit more digestible as well. So we have final image 1, detail shots 2, video 3, process gear 4, then trim sheet testing and maybe some asset breakdowns. Let's say 7 images or something like that, right? And right now, yeah, there's like a whole bunch more. So like trying to condense that down. Going to be very important. There's a lot. Yeah, I know. And again, it's saving time, right? Because a recruiter or a person that's going to be looking at your portfolio is going to be doing that really quick usually. So you want to maximize the content that they get out of it for their time. But yeah, trying to condense that down and like really focusing on like the important stuff, it's going to be paramount here. It's cool though, and you can easily see like if we're just taking raw images, right? If we're just taking raw images and we're using them as a thumbnail, I would have picked either depends, right? I would probably go for this one. Mainly because it pops, right? Like there's nice colors going on. Like it's a very cool, like there's a nice color balance going on compared to something like this is very monotonous, and like the angle of it is like very dead on, right? So it kind of makes the whole scene like very boring all of a sudden. So this would be my first choice, and I think maybe another choice could be something like the chapel here. The chapel is also looking killer. So that could be interesting as well. Yeah. But I think that's the biggest thing here, right? Like restructuring the post to where it makes sense as to what I'm watching actually. And then yeah, condensing like the whole presentation down into like a bite-sized format is going to be very helpful here. Let's have a look at some of the other stuff then. Some commercial stuff going on. Oh my god. This is creepy. Don't like that at all. This is cool though. I mean, it's very different, right? So it's actually... yeah, it's one of those things where I'm not sure if I would put that on my portfolio, or maybe I would put it on... I would put it on something else, right? Or like in another basket or something like that. Because you're currently trying to get a job as like a games artist, right? So this doesn't have direct relevancy to what you're trying to do. That doesn't mean that it doesn't have any relevancy, right? But I don't think it's worth it for putting it on your front page. So I would probably set something up where this is like old work or other works, right? And then you put it to something that is not trying to catch your attention immediately. And then the front page should just be like, hey, games art, you know? It should be that. The sword and the materials too? Fair enough. Just left them there for current freelance clients. Yeah, I think that could be good, right? Like if you put it into like other work, or yeah, maybe you make like a separate portfolio that you still send to your current clients or people that you have to reach out, right? Like trying to balance between, hey, this is my professional games portfolio and this is my current working portfolio. It might be also an interesting thing. Yeah. On this thing, like the fabric looks really nice. The fabric looks really nice. I really think you nailed the look and the feel of the fabric. You did a great job on that. But yeah, topology, it's high poly, right? So no relevancy to like game art at all. If you take this and then bake it down and then texture it in Substance Painter, that would be like a completely different talking point. But right now, I would also just add it to like the older work section if we were to do it. I'm just gonna click through these like real quick. I gotta get rid of the sword and the materials too. I think these materials look awesome though. Looks nice. Like the broken tarmac one. I think what I would do here, they're mostly tutorial work. Yeah, I know. So that's the thing, right? I was gonna say that actually. Like, if it's tutorial work, I would say that in the description and just be like really upfront with it. Like, I've been following tutorials to make these materials, right? You're kind of doing that here, but like in a very roundabout way, right? Like in your description. But I mean, the materials that I'm looking at look really interesting. So I'm now just curious to see what you can do by yourself, because if it's anything closely to this, I would probably have like a post that just showcases the materials that you can make, right? If they're anything close to this quality, like this is good. I'm gonna skip the door actually. I'm just gonna go straight to the environment. I think we can kind of we can I mean, you know this by now, right? Like since we're talking, we can kind of apply the same stuff that we've already said. So I'm not gonna dive too deep into that. It's just condensing the whole post, like picking what is the most important and the most relevant, right? And just presenting it in a nice way. We'll leave you with a couple of tips though. So the first one is if you're presenting something like this, right? Like proportions and scale do matter, right? So what I would say for something like this is the camera on eye height. So that your so that we immediately get the sense that we are in this world. And right now with this camera, you kind of feel like you're floating, and it kind of disconnects you from being grounded in that world. It sounds really cheesy, right? But one of my favorite movies ever does it so good. It's Pacific Rim. And it's actually really cool to see what they did with the second one and how it feels way less grounded than the first one. And it's mostly, in my opinion, like to do with the camera work and then also the animations, right? But the camera work in the first one was actually sort of grounded wherever they could. So either watching from a helicopter or looking from like a rooftop or looking from the ground or something like that. Where in the second one, they kind of have like a free cam that just goes all over the place. And it completely destroys like any sort of sense of scale and weight that they added in the first one. It's actually like a really interesting case of just comparing the two directly. And that's where I'm getting this tip from as well. And the second one here is make a little diorama. Right, so you have this open space here. What I would probably do is to maybe clean out all the foliage, right? And clean out the middle section. And then see if you can turn that into like a display case for the assets that you've made. Maybe not for all of them, right? Because I mean, with the trees, you probably have to do something different where you have like an external section with just maybe like a gray floor or something like that with like a little cluster of foliage surrounding it. That could look really cool. Yeah, and then again, like condensing this, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And the last thing that I'll say is, and this is a tricky one, right? Because it comes down to lighting, which generally, like especially talking from experience, we're not really that good at because we just make cool environments, but then we also have to light the damn thing. Is lighting a focal point. Because right now, like, kind of guiding us here, right? Or we're looking at the bright spots, and those are definitely the lamps. But there's like, there's no real guidance here, you know? Like maybe what you could do is have like, I don't know, like the sun maybe guiding you in, right? Or maybe these lights have like a bigger effect so that they kind of pull you in and the rest is all already like a bit darker, right? Kind of like this, but then I would expect more influence of the lights on the scene. Yeah, the lighting makes it really noisy. Yeah, I think it's also like, yeah, it's the way that you need to look at, or the way that I always look at composition is, there's a lot of things that you can look at, right? But it's how you manage the visual elements in a scene to pull the attention to something that you specifically want to highlight, right? Lighting in this case is only one component that I'm picking out, but it can also be contrast, right? And that can be color contrast and detail contrast and like a lot of stuff. But yeah, in this case, what stands out to me is that the lighting is just like shooting you away and it's trying to pull the attention towards the background, even though we're trying to focus on like the thing in the foreground, right? So yeah, thinking about like lighting up the scene with a focal point in mind would be very helpful. Yeah. Let's have a look. Let me quickly grab a glass of water as well. Be right back. All right, where were we? Last thing for this door. Okay, interesting. Okay. So we've kind of spoken a lot about a presentation, right? So I'm not gonna say it was a class requirement to have it all quads, so I couldn't condense all of it. You still can, right? Like I'll give an example here. It's gonna be a silly one. But you can do something like this, right? And then cut out the middle one. Then it's still a quad. I mean, I wouldn't do that here because you're kind of creating this shape, which is never really good, right? But you could make two triangles into a quad, right? So you could definitely optimize this way more. But I think actually what I wanted to say, which is more important, like it's the foundational thing here, is I would always model the things as they are constructed in real life, which means that the door would be separate for the frame. Because honestly, like if you do that in this case, right? Like all these loops that you have to continue, like they're only there because you need to support this round shape on the door. If you then cut the door out, none of that has to happen. I wasn't allowed to, unfortunately. Okay. I'm gonna say something that your school is not gonna like. Don't put this on your portfolio then. Like, because that's just wrong. Like, there's no reason why you would build it into like a frame like this and then have it look like this kind of topology, right? Like, if you can optimize it and make it into tries, which is totally acceptable, I don't see the restriction on that or why that needs to be there. Yeah, it's just, oh my god, that's like a weird one. Because I'll say you right now, if if we were looking at this, just based on the topology and like the door not being separate, there's a lot of red flags, and I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, this is concerning. Let's call it that. But if it is a restriction from your school, right? That's easy enough because you can easily just get rid of all those things. Like, you could even, what you could even do right now is split this whole thing up, right? Like, still split it up into pieces without actually doing that much to the geometry. You don't need to do anything, right? I would like clean up this whole thing and like really condense down the topology to whatever you think is the most optimized. And once you, yeah, let's say we do something like this, right? So it's gonna go there. It's also gonna go there. So let's say, just as an example, this is the topology that we end up with, right? These lines also don't need to be there. These need to be there because those are important for the silhouette. Right, so we do like a little, well, these are probably going to go to all the way to the corner, right? I'm only doing the left side, by the way. Let me clean that up. Right? And then all this is just going to be like the most important stuff here. And the rest is going to be really clean. Right, you see what I'm doing? Like, you're literally saving like 60% of your geometry. Yeah, Gurkan is actually bringing up like a great suggestion as well. What about a separate window? That's a good shout. Because that would even remove the need of you having to cut in like on the door, like those elements. Yeah, that's a good point. Very good point. But like, yeah, well, the simple thing here is, right? Like, what's the best way of saying this? Like, don't listen to your school if you think your school is going to cost you your job. That's probably it, right? Like, if you know somewhere that this is wrong, and maybe you don't, right? That's why I'm having these discussions. That's why I'm bringing this stuff up. Maybe you don't know, and that's totally fine. Just talking in general here, right? Because this should also be like a learning opportunity too. But if you do know, then you just hand in your assignment, and then after your assignment, you basically clean it up to where you think it should be. Because you can't let school cost you your job. That's yeah. It would be ridiculous. Sorry. But to your point though, second favorite. I like your sculpting, your texturing. Yes, I do too. Like, it looks nice. It has a very cool style to it as well. So I do like what you did here. I really do. I think if you're getting back to it, like, it might also be nice to add a little bit more geometry, right? Especially around the window, because it is that nice rounded shape. You can kind of see the jagged edges on it. Definitely worth a revisit if you're doing it again. Yeah. I also like what you're doing here, right? Like you're experimenting a little bit with how you present your work. And like you're doing these little overviews, right? Where you have the photo inspiration and in the entrance, like you're showing off what your inspiration is. Pretty cool stuff. Keep building on that. Like that sort of like presentation and that attention to detail when it comes to presentation. Very cool to see, Greg. Keep that up. Yes. So I think the main thing that we discussed here, right, to kind of round it off with like a recap, is number one. You make it a bit bigger. Number one. Condense your work. I think honestly that's the main one here, because you're showing off a lot, but you don't need to, right? And the stuff that you're showing off is cool, but you just need to pack it in tighter so that there's more information density. Second one is improve the thumbnails, right? I would probably that's a very easy fix. Because you have the awesome environments lying around anyway, right? You just need to pick a different angle and maybe tweak it a little bit, and you've got like a completely different portfolio in front of you. What would number 3 be? Oh. Yes. Oh, not that big. Show only relevant stuff, right? I think these are the 3 biggest points for you, Greg, at this point. It's just to condense your work, improve the thumbnails, and then show only the relevant stuff. And then keep doing what you're doing, right? Because I see you pushing more and more towards environment art, and I think that's cool to see. I'm really curious to see what you're gonna do with the next thing, right? I know that you're working on like a ton of cool stuff. So yeah. Best of luck, and keep pushing in the direction that you're pushing in. Honestly, it's cool to see you grow. And thank you so much for sharing your portfolio as well, man. Appreciate it. Thank you so much, and good luck. There was a question from, what is it? From Route 1 as well, I think, right? Excited to review me again in a few months? Hell yeah! Looking forward to it. I think Route 1 was bringing up a question: if you follow a material video, like a tutorial, as a base structure and then change it up. Yes, if you change it up enough where it truly becomes yours and that we can't really see the tutorial anymore, then it's totally fine. Because that's, everyone watches tutorials, right? Like professionals watch tutorials as well. Like tutorials are like the best way to learn, you know? Like if you need new knowledge, like people are putting out like awesome tutorials. But the thing that we want to see is that you take a tutorial and you put your spin on it instead of just following the tutorial and then making like a post about it on ArtStation, right? Like that's relatively easy. Anyone can do that, right? Like follow the steps and you make the same military radio. But I want to see you apply those steps onto like a thing that is truly yours. And that's where it becomes really interesting. Yeah, and we all see the same ones. Yep. And also there's no shame in it, right? Like it doesn't cost you any points if you just say like, hey, look, this is made from a tutorial. You know, that's fine. Just say that in the description. Because I think in that situation, what is worse is that you worked from a tutorial and you don't say that you work from a tutorial. And then once people start asking you questions about it, you kind of fall through the basket and it's like, oh, yeah, that was from a tutorial. That's way worse. You don't ever want to be in that position. Trust me. Yeah, it's a good question though. Thank you, Round One. Just mumble something about slow blur. Oh my god. I think this session is gonna be a long one. Damn. Okay, let's see if we can condense it a little bit, right? Yeah, see, military radio. Well, that's a bad thing, right? Radio has been made following Simon Fuchs radio tutorial. Yeah. It looks nice. Looks cool. Nothing wrong with it. But I think that's where it becomes interesting, right? So we see the military radio, and then we see you doing your own stuff in the same sort of presentation, showing that you learn tricks from it. I can even tell that from the thumbnails, right? So that's where it's cool. But yeah, sorry, Andy. Like we kind of jumped straight into it. But yeah, let me actually sit down. Blah. Colors in the sky. Sorry, we're way down here. Okay. What? All right, cool. Andy, let's start out with the same thing as we always do. Overall impressions. Looking real nice. You know, I can see the evolution there already. Right? Kinda, it's interesting. I'm kind of seeing a transition from like cool realistic to like, oh, I'm gonna try and play around with some colors, and then it's like, oh, stylized. I'm kind of curious to see how that evolution happened. Change the job title already by hearing the others' feedback. Oh wait, let me check it out. 3D environment hard surface artist. Nice. Yeah, so cool stuff. I like the banner. I mean, yeah, this is looking nice. I'm curious to dive into that one for sure. Let's actually look at the thing overall, right? So I'm excited to see where the journey has taken you so far. But I'm also, if we're talking about the thumbnails, right? If we're jumping into things, it's kind of interesting what you're doing here. I would follow that, because I think that's hinting at like, hey, I wanna make my thing stand out, like my thumbnail stand out, which is cool, right? I would keep following that and then think about consistency. And also, in your case, like think about the size of it as well, right? Like, with something like that, you wanted to have it like very subtle, where it's not taken away from the actual art that you put on display with your thumbnail, right? That's what you should try to avoid with having text on it. Because also, if you put something with white text on there, it's going to be like very flashy and like very, very intense. It's going to take a lot of attraction away. So, but yeah, I would say play around with it, make it a bit smaller, maybe add like a bit of personalization to it in some way, you know, that makes it unique to you. I'm not going to fill that in. That's more up to you. But I would definitely follow that thread, or like that feeling of trying to make it more unique for you. and then seeing if you can find something that's interesting in like consistency's sake. Yeah, cool. Okay, where should we begin? I am gonna look at this gun. Gun first. So we got pretty what'd you call it? Like pretty concise presentation, right? In this case, I would actually want to see more game art where you break down the textures that you've used and how you've approached them. It would be cool to see. I'm not expecting like a bunch of stuff below this, right? I'm just expecting like one breakdown, but maybe like your texture maps next to it and maybe a wireframe on top of it or something like that. So that I can really see like how you approach your modeling, how you approach your texturing and all that kind of stuff. I would definitely add that on to this post. Right, because that's going to be very important. Again, we're trying to reduce the amount of friction, or like the amount of questions rather, that a recruiter or someone that wants to hire us, we're trying to reduce the amount of time that takes, right? And the more we can show up front, the less, or the more inclined they might be like, oh, this stuff is looking solid, right? Like even the topology and the wireframe, blah 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 blah. Like the more you can push that like in front of them, the less of a burden it becomes on you then explaining it in a potential interview, if you even get an interview. Because someone else that might make it like way easier to like show all the game art stuff is gonna have a leg up compared to you in this case, right? This project, I think, will eventually get out of my portfolio since it's a texturing assignment. That's why there is no wireframe. Okay, fair enough. Maybe it depends on you, right? It might be interesting to still make a wireframe for it, right? And to kind of clean it up. But I mean, depends on you. If this is like purely high poly and you have to still make a low poly and you haven't done any baking, yeah, might not be worth it. Let's see. I'm assuming that you did baking because I can see some of the edges here. So, well, the edges do look really sharp though. I don't know. Some of them at least. Yeah, but that's fair enough. If you want to remove it at a certain point, that's your choice, right? Like if you feel very uncomfortable with it and don't want to go back to it, that's fine too. Look behind. Okay. The reason why I'm laughing with that is, who's gonna see that? Right? I'm thinking very logically about it, but like no one's really gonna see that, right? So it feels very out of character. Like it doesn't really make sense for it to be here. You know what I mean? I will say, however, kudos to you for thinking about these little details that you want to add onto a prop though. That is awesome. I think it's just yeah, you wanted to add some stories. I can see that, right? And that's why I'm giving you props. Like you're trying to push this from like a gun to like a gun that's trying to say something, right? I would probably think about it a bit more. Like try to think how people would use this gun, like how you would personalize the gun, right? Even look at, oh my god, I've never this sounds like I'm gonna send you into a rabbit hole, right? But there must be some gun nut forums where people are like really into how to really personalize their guns. Might come up with really interesting ideas for how you can do that on your gun as well. Again, I've never delved into that side of the internet yet, so I don't know what you're going to encounter, but yeah. Could be an interesting approach, you know? Go a reference hunting. It's a cool little gun, though. Or really weird threads. Yep, exactly. Proceed with caution. Yeah, I can. Yes, please be careful. It's a cool little gun, though. I would say it's not too bad, actually. I would still think about the presentation, and a way that you could add storytelling as well is you don't necessarily have to do it to the gun itself, but you could do it with like a very simple presentation surrounding it, right? Like, and what I mean is that you don't have to make like all the assets yourself. What you could do is use Megascan assets, right? Or some assets that you found on the internet that look good and kind of match the style that you're going for. And then make a little diorama that has a little bit of storytelling built into it. That story is completely up to you, right? But it could be like an interesting case of adding, adding some extra storytelling to it with like a simple diorama, right? So that could be a good way of doing this. I will say about the textures, right? We spoke about it a couple times already with previous people, but like if you want to do a presentation like this, show me the complete maps and then also make them relevant to the actual prop that you're presenting, right? So full textures and then making it relevant to the object. And if you do that, even within those restraints, you can present it in like a whole bunch of ways, you know? So maybe, yeah, think about cool ways to present it. UV presentation is something that I hadn't fully understood yet. Yeah, I think just showing like the full maps is probably like the minimal requirement, right? Because now it's kind of weird. Like I can only see like this section of the normal, right? And it's like, but what if I want to see like this cool section in the normal? I just can't, you know? So it kind of always feels weird. But yeah, making it relevant to your object is probably like a good way of approaching it. But there's so many ways of doing it, right? So yeah, I think it just needs to be visually clear. I think that's the biggest thing here, right? Cool little gun though. Like it. Then we got this Chevy Impala. Oh, this is cool. So you got like a worn and like a normal version as well. That's pretty cool. Provide the wireframe too. But this isn't baked down, right? Or is it? Oh, it is baked down. Duh. I'm looking at the texture right here. Cool. Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting one. The reason why I say it's interesting, right, is because you add like a whole bunch of geometric detail where you could have easily solved that with normal map, right? Well, I'll see if I can give an example here. I mean, it seems to be very dense on the bevels, right? And like on these lights as well. So like the front lights. Like that doesn't need all that geometry, right? Yeah, it feels like you're kind of in the middle. That's what I'm kind of struggling with, right? Like it's film topology, but with textures that fit like game art, right? Because normally with like film you would probably use like UDIMs and go like all crazy with the amount of stuff that you can add on it. But yeah, it could be really nice if you can optimize this and like keep the textures intact, because this would be like an awesome use case, you know? Because I like it. Looks very nice, you know? Very nice. It's just the only thing that's worrying is the topology, right? Like you're saying as well. And also the topology density, right? I'll point out an area where it's like, cool, you have like really harsh cuts in your geometry, right? But then right next to it, you have like areas that are like 100 times the density, right? Let's say. And that's where topology to me is not about like the raw number that you get at the end. It's more about like adding it where it matters. Whereas in this case, what matters more is having the silhouette of your frame, like the body of the car, right? Is probably going to be more important than like a wheel cap that's kind of hidden underneath the same thing, right? Because you're going to see the silhouette of that frame of the car earlier than you see the wheels underneath it as well. So yeah, that's the thing. That's where I would look at, like, if you're thinking about topology and how to clean it up, that's what I would keep in mind as well. But yeah. Presentation is really nice though. I think this is like a good condensed post, right? Like I was thinking maybe you could have like all the wireframe ones on like a one display. But I think then it would be kind of hard to see like all the details in the wireframe. So yeah, I don't think it's that bad to keep it like this and have it like full frame, and then you can kind of go in and like see the full thing, right? I think that's kind of nice. So I think this is like actually like a good presentation. Again, the textures, right? Like try to make them relevant to the object itself as much as you can. But the rest of it actually looks really nice. I'll give you one pointer, because this project is actually way more interesting than the thumbnail is letting you seem. And it's the comparison between the clean car and the old car. It would be kind of nice to somehow like cut this frame in half and have the clean one here and the old one over here or something, right? Or maybe you could have it like head on and then split them to the sides or something like that, where it shows the contrast between the clean one and the old one. Because that is so awesome. Like I would have clicked on that like way quicker if you show that off in a thumbnail rather than this one right now. Because my assumption there is this car, even though it looks freaking sick, like that's one version of the car, right? But if you then show off like the pristine one and the old one in the same thing with like a little separation, man, that would make me click like way quicker. Pretty cool idea. 100% go for it. Thanks a bunch. Never thought about it. Yeah, you're welcome. I think, yeah, be a very interesting approach. But yeah, I love that project. Like the clean versus old, like it's very cool. Like it was like a nice surprise seeing it as I opened it. So interesting thing. I think I think you're already reworking it, right? Because you're fixing the tires and all that stuff. I think this could be like a showcase on your portfolio where you show off like a pretty complex asset, but like where you still bake like stuff down where it matters, and then also have stuff in geo where it matters too. You could still go for like the cinematic asset approach that you have now, right? Making it more heavy than you would normally see. But I mean, I can guarantee you that stuff in Forza Horizon also looks pretty dense when it comes to geometry. So as long as it gets, let's say, pretty close to what the kind of geometry that they use, and you can justify it, that's what matters the most, right? Because in the grand scheme of things, if we're looking at this project by itself, right, what is more important is that you actually executed the whole thing and making it look as finished and detailed as possible within the restrictions of game art, compared to optimizing the topology. Right? Optimizing the topology is like relatively simple to do if you have all the art underneath it like already nailed down. So yeah, good job on this. And then lastly, let's go into this environment. Two-month environment art. So collaboration as well. Oh, so the matte painting trying to replicate the beautiful sky. Cool. So someone else made the matte painting background in the back. That's looking cool. Actually curious. I mean, you've really nailed this one, I feel. Like there's some things that we can point out, right? But I feel like you nailed the vibe, you nailed the style, like very close to the actual thing. So great job. Great job on that. So I've got the wireframe here. Some of these things look unnecessarily beveled, right? Because what I'm basically looking at is all the thick black means that there's like a couple of bevels, which means that you've not used a normal map to try to get rid of those bevels, right? So I'm making the assumption. Oh. Let me see before I make any assumptions. Mm-hmm. I only have displayed one UDIM, that's the teacher's petition. Yeah. Oh, so you're only... Yeah, so the whole environment is using multiple UDIMs, right? Is that what I'm getting out of it? multiple Udemy. Yeah. So this is the whole thing, right? Like the thing, well, is basically coming down to the same thing that we said before, right? Like you're kind of in, you have your foot in the door in like both aspects. Like you're trying to make game art with the restrictions that have been put on you where you're following animation or like the VFX industry. Right? So I think for this to be like actual game art, this is going to be trickier than the car though. Well, the car itself isn't also tricky, I guess, because it's also one Udemy. Because the important thing is, if this was to be done in game art, you would have to find a way to like be smart with the resources that you have, right? You wouldn't have like Udemy all over the scene. It would be like, okay, what can be reused in this scene? Like, can I make it titleable that I can apply to let's see. Can I make it titleable that I can apply to this wall, but also to this wall and maybe to the wall in the back, you know? And that's where like a lot of reuse comes in rather than using like unique Udemy on everything. So yeah, that's the thing. I think if you really wanna go for game art, that's the stuff you need to focus way more on in the future. If, of course, you have the opportunity to do that within the school. Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, because that's the tricky situation that you're in right now. Because, you know, the art here is cool, right? Like the art here is really looking solid, no doubt. It's just the technical understanding and the workflows that you need in order to become a game artist are different than the ones you would have in animation industry, right? So what I would do is probably do stuff on the side that you know is going to be more game dev relevant, because I'll be honest, like to rework this to make full game art ready, it's probably gonna take you a long time to get that to a stage where it looks anything like this one, right? So I don't think that's worth it, because you might as well do a new scene then that is fully in line with game art. That's what I would do in your case. But yeah, I mean, the presentation looks nice, you know, like all the stuff that you got on display is looking really nice. These atlases are a great start. I would say try to always maximize the amount of space that you have on your UV sheet, because this is wasted and this section is also wasted, right? So how you usually do that is you try to, if you have like a UV sheet, right? You try to add like a couple of things in a way where they kind of match, right? So in this case, because they're kind of squarish, you could do it in squares. But you could also do it in triangles as well, right? So something more like this, where this is a stem, and then you would have like your leaf more like this. You could also do that. But yeah, that's details, right? I think the presentation on this looks really nice. I think, yeah, it's making it game ready and like game art applicable is definitely going to be the tough part, right? I think you got the art down, right? Don't get me wrong. I think you can definitely do it, make that pivot. Just, yeah, it's going to take additional effort to get there. I'm kind of burned out with these projects that I got in my hand cut off since I got my hands cut off with a bunch of other things. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I think for you, the best case scenario would be to switch to making a project that is game art applicable and kind of doing that as much as you can within the limits that you have, the limited time that you have. Because that's the thing, right? Like, looking at your portfolio, I know that you can do the art, right? But I want to see you do the art in a game art way, not in a VFX way. I think that's really important at this stage to show off. So the more that you can do that, the better, right? Because yeah, the presentation is there, you know, like the work itself looks really solid, and yeah, the attention to detail is there. Yeah. So let's let's do a little recap then, right? So in your case, Andy, so I would say yeah, game art. Right? That's going to be the important one. Game art is definitely going to be an important one here. I think the presentation is actually really nice. There were some, again, like what we've kind of talked about before with other people as well, is a presentation of having your textures relevant to the object that they're texturing, right? So that can be definitely done. And then in terms of the content that's on your portfolio already, right? Oh, I just noticed that I'm writing off screen again. Or like into the chat. Right? And then I think once you just keep pushing the art that you love to do and you become more comfortable with the stuff that you're trying to show off right now, like you're already doing, yeah, I think you're in a very good position. So there's only 2 points for you, but I think man, that first one is gonna be a big one. It can be done, right? But I wouldn't do that on the current projects. I would do it in the next ones. Got it. I'm already pushing that aspect. One of the things why I founded the community in order to understand more technical aspects of it. So far, loving it. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Andy. Yeah, we're always there to help. So feel free to reach out and ask questions to the community. Right? Let us help you as much as we can. But yeah, honestly, like I love the project here. Right? Like the project that is on your banner. Really nice job with that one. I love the style. If you can replicate that in game art as well, which I'm pretty confident you can, yeah, that's gonna be freaking awesome to see. So curious to see how that's gonna be happening. It's a great job, and thank you so much for sharing your portfolio as well, Andy. Good luck. Not as harsh as the whole journey. No, I don't think so. Because that's also why I keep reiterating that your art is already in like a very good position, right? And the technical ability that you have to add on top of it is always going to be less difficult than having a good fundamental understanding of how art works. Hi Dinesh, I want to drop my portfolio. Where do I find the link? So if you're a member of our community, you can do that actually on the Discord community. If not, there is a link. I don't know. Let me share it again. There's a link here that you can follow, and you can drop your portfolios there if you want to. But the community always gets the first seats, so it might be a while once we get your portfolio there. Yes. Andy, again, thank you so much and best of luck. I'm sure that we'll do this in the future, and I'm sure that your stuff is going to look amazing. So keep it up. Nice one. I think... Sorry, Mishla. I think I'm gonna do one more. And... Oh, the link is not working now? Oh. Oh. Link is not working. Dun, dun, dun. Let me try some stuff here. Oh. Yep, it isn't working. Huh. Let's have a look. Okay, I have no idea how that happens. I'll need to check it after the stream. Alright, so, again, sorry Mishla, I'm probably not going to get to your portfolio today. I've thoroughly underestimated the amount of time that it was going to take me today to get through these portfolios, and I do want to take the time. So, we will move your portfolio to next review, which is going to be in a month from now. So sorry about that. But we're going to do Sheila's portfolio, and then probably I'm going to head out, because my voice is kind of going as well, so gotta keep that one intact. Sorry, Mishla. Okay, so where were we? I kind of saw it coming within the hour there is now. Yeah, yeah, I really underestimated the amount of time that it was gonna take. Shit. Anyway, Sheila, thank you so much for posting your portfolio. Let's have a look. First impressions. Really nice work. Of course, I've seen this one already because you've been a part of Work in Progress Wednesday, and I'm excited to see what you're gonna do for the next one as well. Yeah, let's have a look. I think I love these dioramas. Right? Like, they're pretty cool. Yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna dive on in. I think we'll have a look at the work first, and then see what I think about the thumbnails after, because I want to see if we can maybe push some of the qualities that are already existent in the work itself. Let's start with the oldest one, or potentially oldest one. 7 months ago, making this chest. Nice. Let's have a look at this chest. Yep, that's cool. I mean, most of this is more about portfolio review, right? So I'm gonna steer away of giving like more actual like art advice. So we're gonna try to I'm gonna try myself to steer clear from the more artistic things and keep focused on the presentation itself, right? But I think the presentation here feels kind of muted, kind of safe. You know, like it's very, like you have like a square plate that has like a chest on it. I think you can really push it to make it more interesting, where you do something more with the floor. Like maybe you could have like really overemphasize like, hey, these are like rotten or like old wooden boards, right? And maybe emphasize the silhouette of the whole thing more if you can. Right, like having like boards stick up, and maybe this board is like misaligned here in the back. Because what I'm thinking about is that this looks like it's on a boat or something like that, right? So I'm immediately thinking about the water affecting the wood and like how it's like bending because of the water damage over time. And you can kind of use that information to make it look like really nice and unique, right? And like really help you push the silhouette of the table that you've put it on, basically, and make it way more interesting to look at, right? Like way more characterful. Because I don't know, I mean, yeah, it's kind of happening here already, right? To some degree, but like I feel that's what stylized art is very good at in most cases. It's like the overemphasis of like the core shapes and like how thick something is compared to how something small something is. Like just the contrast between the two is very interesting, right? So you can kind of see that here with like very emphasized, like a very bold shape for a chest that really goes down into like a really strong dip. And it's very like, this is not a realistic chest, right? But it has like a lot of strong character and like a lot of interesting shape language to it. And then also like smaller things that add like real bits of character to it too, right? Like a little bit of seaweed on top of it. And then maybe if you add like a little bit of seaweed, you could add that to like the planks as well, where seaweed is kind of draped over it. You know, like it's affecting the planks. And like really trying to elevate it from what you have done with it, where you've kind of took like a very, what's the best word of saying that, like a very like a muted approach, I would say, like a very safe approach, maybe that's a better way of saying it, where you can really push the shapes and the volumes and like the overemphasize like everything, right? Looking at it now, I can see my model is quite different from the concept. Yeah, it's the whole looking back at it in hindsight, where you realize all the stuff that you should have done, right? Yeah, you can do a lot of cool things, right? Like you can have like little nails coming out of it. Yeah, just doing something more with the presentation of it than you have currently would be nice. Oh, you even have the seaweed. Sorry, didn't see that. Yeah. Yeah, like these things as well, right? Like, I don't know what they're called. Like you would really like emphasize these, right? Where they're almost like too big for the chest, but then they could kind of look cool because they're so bold and they've taken over like a large part of the chest, right? You could have one on the back as well. Well, I said I wasn't gonna. Oh, thanks, Adblock. Great timing. I said I wasn't going too deep into the artistic details, but I think that's what this piece needs, right? Like it's very, like you would need to push a presentation of it. And like add character, right? Like, I mean, instead of adding character, like be bold, right? Be bold, like be bold with the shapes and the colors and like the presentation of it, and like make it like really push it, you know? I think that's what this one needs. And then also, for this one, show game art, right? What does your UV layout look at? So what are we missing here? Like UVs, wireframe, and then bakes, right? Or like the textures. I think those three things would definitely be good to show off. Like just your UV layout, and then like the wireframe of the chest itself, and then the textures, right? Again, like you have some space on the left here, which is awesome. You can actually for this do something very minimalistic, where you have like 2 shots of your chest, right? Like one on this angle, and then one on this kind of angle. And then maybe one of them has like the wireframe on top of it. And then the textures can all be just in like a little collage over here. Oh, poly count. Also important. Like poly count at the bottom. And I think if you have that, like that's just one page and it kind of shows everything that they need to know, right? From like the 2 angles to like all the textures that you use to like the UV layout, all that kind of stuff. Just on like the one presentation. Nice and clean. Take a little bit of time to Photoshop it together. And that's gonna be really helpful. And it's gonna really break this piece down quite nicely. Nice. Let's see. Oh, nice. Getting some wireframes over here. This one's 7 months ago. I'm actually curious. Yeah. I was curious to see if there was like a comparison that I could make between the sword that you made like 7 months ago and like maybe like a prop that was in the latest scene. I don't think there was anything like this because this is from 4 months ago, right? So it's not as big of a time gap. And I was basically trying to see if there were like any like real big differences in something very comparable, right? Like from 2 props. But let's actually see. I think the presentation here is very dark, right? Like I would almost expect something like this to be very contrasty in terms of like the color usage, where the sword itself is like very dark and very reddish, but I'm thinking about like the WoW approach, right? Like where, I mean, I've never played WoW, so I might be talking silly stuff over here, but I'm imagining this blue sword. Don't know the name of the sword, but like it's very bright in its setup, right? Instead of having like black on black again, where it's kind of rough to see. Maybe yeah, doing a little bit more. Adding like a little bit of a diorama to it to present it, right? Going like a little bit out of your way. Where it would be, oh my god, maybe. Okay. Just gonna do like a random idea here, right? Like maybe it would be cool if you have like a frame and like your sword is kind of sticking half through like a bit of molten lava in the middle, and it kind of teeters out towards the edges, right? And all this would be is like a tidal bowl of lava and the same tidal bowl of lava, but with no lava in it. And then you just paint, like you vertex paint between the two, and then you just stick the sword into it, right? I mean, it might need like a little bit more where you actually want to see like some geometry on the edges, right? But maybe something like that would be cool. Instead of just having this straight on, like kind of standard looking render, right? Like there's nothing really excited about this. Like there's no real character here, right? I mean, no real character. I'm not saying that there's no character, because this is like a very unique looking sword, right? But I feel, yeah, add a bit of story to it. That's probably a better way of saying it. Like the sword in lava could maybe be an interesting idea. Yeah, I think elevating it above what you currently have, like really making it stand above what you would normally see from other people as well, is probably a good shout, right? And it doesn't have to be the whole damn sword in lava idea. It could also be something that's more in what you wanted to do with it as well, right? That's totally fine. You just try to push it above just making the asset and then calling the asset done. Like, rope me in. Like, get me excited about like why you made this sword and why this sword, why not any of the other swords, right? Let me see, maybe there's something in the concept that we can... Oh. No, I took it offline. Okay, never mind. Got a sword diorama. No, this is a cute shot. I like that. Yeah, there's one thing. I mean, I like what you're doing here, right? Like with the, you're trying to add more of a story to it. I mean, it's also based on the concept, right? Let's see. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. I see. Okay. So there was one thing that I was going to bring up with the sword, which kind of looks weird, and it's this angle here. Right, where this feels like really weird and soft. And I see that you're kind of getting it from the concept. But I think this is one of those cases where you have to look at the concept and then also compare it to real life and then think about like, okay, something looks off here. Something looks weird and plasticky. Maybe it's something that I need to improve compared to the concept, right? That's the one thing that stands out to me like immediately here. Yeah. This is a cool concept though. Yeah, I'm almost thinking in terms of presentation, right? If we look at the background or like the diorama floor that is presented on, I think it could be worth of adding just like more leaves and like maybe a bit more geometry to the base plane and like really push with the volume that we have here, right? Like you could almost, like if we're looking at the concept again, like it's very like you kind of have like a bulb here, like a bulb here, and then like another bulb here. Like it's trying to like make an interesting shape just with the floor that it has currently. And I think you can really push that on your end too. Because yours kind of follows more of like a rough circle, right? And again, like really being bold with those shapes again, right? Like really playing with it and really making like a unique kind of presentation with it can help you a lot. What actually is something that you could try is go way bolder than you want to go, and then if it's too much, dial it back. Like that's usually a good way of like testing the limits, right? Where you push something like much more than you originally intended to, and then seeing if it's too much, and if it is, like pull it back slightly. Because yeah, like even this might be too much, right? But it might also be pretty cool once you start dressing it up with like those little edges of like plants. Make it a little bit clearer. Could be cool. Could be more unique in terms of shape as well. I mean, it's definitely going to be more unique in shape. That's the whole reason why we're doing this, right? And maybe you have like a bigger plant here as well. You could even go like really bold. And kind of pick, because this is an interesting silhouette, so I don't really want to add anything here, right? Like maybe yeah, there's some cool stuff that you can do with like really pushing it, right? I hope you understand what I'm doing with this little scribble on top of it, right? Like I'm really trying to push like the silhouette of it and like really make it like really impactful. Even though it deviates from the concept, right? I think it could be cool to really push it, because I have the feeling that you're trying to push it more towards like the other spectrum, right? Like I'm pushing it to be bold and you're trying to minimize like how bold it is, or maybe trying to push it more towards realism or something like that. Yeah. And then in terms of the presentation again, yeah, so portfolio presentation is you got the main render here, which looks nice. Got this detail shot, which I really love. Got these two additional detail shots, which look really nice. I would probably not do the different light render because it kind of doesn't look good. Like it's kind of like a weird angle. But I would definitely keep the other shots though, like the wireframe and like the high polys made in ZBrush. They look good. I would also say something that we've brought up like a couple of times, right? Like be really transparent about like not only your wireframe like you're doing here, right? Which is awesome. Love to see it. But yeah, again, like the textures, right? Oh god. Textures and UVs. Like try to show them off as well. Especially you don't have to show like all the UVs, right? Like you can just show off the one. I would probably take like the sword or something like that, right? Where you pick your hero prop, or the UV that you're most comfortable with, right? You can kind of cherry pick that one, and then show that off as well. Cool stuff though. I do like all the foliage here. The foliage looks really nice. Little mushrooms. Love it. Great stuff. These are cool. These lines that like flow from one asset to the other, right? Those are really cool to see. Clean wireframe. Hey, Costas! Yeah, okay, so now that we've seen like a couple of pieces, right? I think think about how you can elevate it above the presentation that we're kind of always using with the black in the back or like the gray in the back, right? Like it's very stereotypical, and there's a reason why they use it. Like it's very neutral and it's very doesn't really do that much, right? But again, maybe you did this, right? Maybe I don't know about it, but like going for like something bold, like a pastel color or something in the back, like really making it vibrant, maybe adding some graphical elements. I don't know. You know? I feel like there's so much potential to make something that looks really unique and like really, I don't know, really you, right? Instead of doing like very clean. It looks clean, right? There's nothing wrong with this. Like the presentation looks nice. But I feel like there's an opportunity to really push it and make it yours. Oh, also, I love the wireframe of the rope. You might want to do something about that wireframe because that is really dense. It's also a frequent awkward shape, right? But I think for a shape like this, let me go back. You could honestly just make that like a cylinder, right? Like just make it like a cylinder with a couple of cuts. Like really simplify that down. Yeah, ropes are difficult. Yeah, cool stuff though. I feel like that's the thing, right? Like your work is very consistent. But I'm honestly the most excited about this one, right? Like very unique style to it. Like a unique approach to like how you're doing the leaves on the trees as well. I feel yeah. No, I was gonna do something art again. No, let's keep it to the presentation. So yeah, I'm really a fan of this one. Like I like it. Let's have a look at the video as well. Got the falling leaves. That's cool. That's awesome. Oh, you added some flowers to it too. That's awesome. I love that they don't distract from a distance, but they are there if you look closely. Love that. Yeah. Very clean breakdown, right? Like very clean. Like this is the assets that I've done. Like with the forest in the back. I actually like that approach, right? Like it shows that you took it into account that you don't want to present it on like an empty landscape. Great stuff. Yeah, nice one. I mean, it's kind of getting boring at this point, right? But like same kind of approach could be done. Like I want to see how you approach your textures, right? How you approached let's say one asset, right? Like maybe the temple itself. Show me how you approach the topology on it. And the textures, how you approach the textures, more importantly. Maybe there's also some cool shader stuff that you can show off as well. I don't know how you approached like the foliage in this scene, but maybe there could be like a shader that you could show off as well, showing that you have like a technical understanding of it too. Yeah, I would, if I have to kind of summarize this one, I would have to say, one is dare to be bold. I think I say this again in reference to the presentations, right? Like it's kind of in a lot of aspects in this one. So in terms of presentation, in terms of color usage as well, and in terms of shapes, right? Where even with the last one that you did, it looks really nice and kind of has like a more muted stylized look, right? But I feel with some of the other ones, like you can really pick up like the colors and like really push the saturation and like the contrast between the colors as well. Obviously, this comes with a big caveat. If that is not the thing that you want to go for your personal work, that is totally fine, right? Don't just do it because I'm saying it or because the internet like um gives you more likes for it. Probably no better way of saying it. Um but yeah, I do love the stuff that you have on display, Sheila. Like especially the last one. I love that you're going outside of your comfort zone and you're doing something that's not a diorama and you're really trying to make like a fuller world. And it's looking really good, honestly. Like I love the style that you've incorporated into it. Yeah. So great job. I would say number two would be more game art, right? Like but that's smaller one. It's still important though. Still important, especially for recruiters again, right? Like if recruiters or artists are gonna jump on your portfolio, they want to see like how you did something. The more you show them how, the quicker they can jump to the conclusion and be like, yeah, this is the person that we need. Is there a number three? I think honestly, number one is probably the biggest one, right? Like the Dare to Be Bold thing, and then showing off game art. Because I'll be honest, like the art that you're showing off looks really good. I can tell that you have a love and a passion for the things that you're doing. Like it is clear and it is there, right? I think you're currently at a stage where you're getting more and more comfortable, especially with the diorama, right? Like the diorama approach works and you're comfortable at taking a concept to execution and to finalize thing. Very comfortable with that. I can tell that. I think now you're getting to a stage where you have to kind of leave all the technical restrictions behind a little bit more and really be daring with your artistic choices and maybe pick something that you want to do, right? I don't know if this last one was actually a concept, so let me actually see. Yeah, so this is good, right? I like that you're doing this step where this started from a concept, but then you kind of took it in your own hands and you kind of took like a different spin on it. And that's what I want to see more in the future from you as well, where you take something, you can still start from a concept, right? Like nothing wrong with that, but then you add your spin on it. You make it really yours. That's what I'm really excited about with you because I can see that you're getting really comfortable with all the technical things and like making the art itself is becoming more of a routine to you now. Right? So step 3 or like recap item 3 is make it yours. Right? Kind of goes in line with number 1. I'm kind of cheating, but yeah, that's what I would say. And yeah, again, like I'm really excited with this last project. Like you kind of jumped into the community, was kind of showing it off, and like from the get-go it kind of had like a lot of good stuff going, right? And I really like where you took it in the end and like how it's on your portfolio now. And I'm super excited for your next project as well. Like I really am, because it is such a good pick. I want to see in that one how you can really put your own spin on it, right? Like what story do you want to tell with that? Because I feel like that environment that you're making right now, like the ruins, is a perfect foundation to maybe add something of yourself on top of it, right? Like tell a little story, or like, I don't know. It doesn't have to be a lot, right? But you can make it yours. So yeah, I'm excited to see you do that. And if any of this doesn't make sense, like feel free to reach out to me personally. And thank you so much for sharing your portfolio with us. Thank you so much, Sheila. And I'm honestly excited to where your next concepts, or like next work is gonna go. I'm really excited for it. Thank you so much for sharing your portfolio. Thank you so much, Tim. No worries. Thank you too. And best of luck as well. Keep on crushing it. All right, people. I think that's going to do it for me today. We've done a whole bunch of portfolios, a whole bunch of crazy looking talent. Like, I'm always surprised, you know, like the stuff that we seen on display today. So awesome. And I know that during these streams, I'm like really in the zone and I'm really critical and paying attention to like all the presentation tips and tricks that I can give to everyone, right? But I just want to say to everyone here that shared your portfolio, awesome job. You know, like your work is looking really amazing. Keep it up. And if there's anything that I can do, or anything that the community can do for you, let us know and we'll be happy to help. So yeah. I think that's going to do it for me today. So I'm going to sign off here. Again, thank you so much to everyone that showed their portfolio and shared it as well. And yeah, we'll speak to each other tomorrow for Wednesday. So I'm going to bounce. Stay creative, people. Bye-bye.